Hi, everyone. It's Fresh from Kristen, and today I am super excited to share with you a longtime friend of almost a decade, as well as a wonderful human being who just keeps bringing more and more heart into the world and helping other people really connect in a way that's genuine, empowering, and full of life, actually. Um, Let me introduce you to Amy Silverman. Here she is. She is the founder of the Connection Movement, the Human-Centered Group, and also Connection Camp, which is an amazing event. We're going to tell you more about that. That's happening in June near the Appalachian Trail. Um, and before I let Amy speak, she's just going to keep smiling here. I'm going to let you guys know a little bit more about her. So, everyone's very lucky to for us to have this conversation, for you to get to know her. Like, life is opening up. Thank you so much. And Amy has had over 20 years of facilitation experience with the cohesion and deepening of group and interpersonal dynamics. She's worked with thousands of students and clients worldwide, delivering trainings, events, coaching, social engagement programs, and retreats for both individual participants and leaders, but also groups. She offers business and team communication, culture, community building, engagement counseling with her growing consultancy of Human-Centered Group. And she's also been building empathy and human connection-oriented local and online communities for nearly 2 decades across several continents. Her passion for restoring the social fabric of modern living via cultivating a sense of shared humanity, belonging, and meaningful human connection, that's what led her to form the Connection Movement. So this community-focused organization helps individuals and groups explore and embrace empathy, vulnerability, communication, and important inclusive conversations through trainings and social events. And you guys all know that I'm always talking about vulnerability and empathy and presence, and she's going to talk into exactly how to do that. So anyway, since 2016, she's run the Connection Camp, which is an annual sleepaway camp getaway that provides home for an adult to experience play, deep relationships, personal discovery, authentic self-expression, and belonging in an accepting community. So her work is informed by the practices and teachings of circling, authentic relating, Gestalt therapy, group dynamics, nonviolent communication, creative drama, integrative arts programming, improvisation and theater, meditation and mindfulness, 5 rhythms, and expressive dance. Basically, she's taken her whole life's work and interest and just poured it all into this work through Connection Camp, Connection Movement, all of that. Amy, welcome. Thank you for being here. Woo!
Yeah, it was fun to listen to my life, or my life of this last 20 years. Like,
It's pouring into
poured
you.
out over me. It felt really good. So I've done
Yeah.
some cool things.
Yeah. I mean, you have like so many things that you've done. When I knew you, like, you were equally a singer as well as an internet marketer, having that online store, and you were moving through theater and acting. You're doing all these things. So how did you land here of all places?
Yeah, it's funny. I have been doing a lot of thinking lately about well, this just all makes so much sense, but I didn't know it along the way. This
Mm-hmm.
is where I was going, but it just makes sense that this is where I am. When I was a kid, I was equally passionate about being a musical theater performer. And also, I thought that I invented the concept of using theater in particular, but the arts as like a platform for social work and bringing people together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was sure that I came up with that idea, which I did, but
Yeah.
also people came up with it before me and studied it for decades. So I was always equally pulled between like the creative expression, my own creative expression, and being on a stage and performing, but also leading groups and creating experiences.
Mm.
So um, I studied both in school, and then for a while I really pursued performing and loved it. but also the life of a professional performer is only a very small percentage about performing.
Yes.
And I felt like, I say this with total respect to all performers and artists, but I felt like I wasn't using my potential.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a lot more I could give and do, and I was feeling that pull. And so it kicked off with volunteering in Costa Rica that brought me back to, like, I really want to facilitate and teach. And so I went back into working with youth. And then I had just gotten an acting agent, and he said to me, because I stayed extra time in Costa Rica to volunteer, it was like, do you want to save the world or do you want to be an actor? And I was like, oh, well,
Oh.
if you're going to make it that black and white, like,
Yeah, like that sounds ridiculous.
it sounds ridiculous. Because I was like, I'm a better actor now than I ever was before I left for Costa Rica.
Yeah.
All the experiences I had and the emotions I touched, but that was that agent. But really, I just, like, I started having some frustrations and setbacks in that industry. And even though I was doing well by all measures professionally, it was just like, no. And so I started teaching again. And then I went into, as you said, the internet marketing stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that was very much about economics. It
Yeah.
was like, I need a way to make money. This is a new thing, this internet marketing and selling stuff online. And that's when I realized that, I didn't do the internet marketing the way you were supposed to. I ended up building tons of live events to sell the products, and then thinking, like, although the people will use the website later to repurchase. And then I was like, oh, I love working with adults. I didn't realize how much I love
Mm-hmm.
facilitating adults. And um, I was experiencing a lot of isolation as an internet marketer,
Mm-hmm.
and as just like a solo entrepreneur. And I met someone named Brian Bayer, who was one of the first sort of circling facilitators. He was in the kind of original crew of people who took on this practice of circling, which I'll tell you what it is in a
Okay,
second.
thank you. I was
I
like,
met
what is
him,
circling? Yeah.
yeah. So when he visited New York from San Francisco, we met at a birthday party, and he, the way we were able to connect instantly, and the way I was able to feel myself becoming present and experiencing my emotions as I shared with him, just opened up a new world for me that I had been looking for in coaching, in therapy, in landmark education, and like in acting classes. And there was just somehow in 20 minutes of just talking to this guy, I got that thing. It was like
What was
the
that thing?
vitamin that my body needed, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So you're gonna say, like, what was he doing? Like,
No,
why?
like, no, what was it like? No, what was like, what was the, like, how did you feel? Like, what was happening in your life? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
So, well, I had experienced some really challenging things as a kid.
yeah.
It was a difficult home environment. Um, and the way I coped was to shut down a lot of my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like completely numb out, but the spectrum and the range of intensity and fullness of emotion was very muted and shrunken down. And I remember it was like the end of high school where I was like, okay, I'm ready to flip the switch back on. I want to like feel all this stuff again.
Yeah,
And it didn't work like that. Like the switching off was swift, but
yeah,
the switching back on was like, ooh, and I felt like, in those cartoons when they'll take something and they'll lock it in a treasure chest and then put 10 million chains and different kinds of locks all around it. And it's like, how would I ever open that? That's how I was experiencing my access to myself,
Right.
my access to like really being impacted by people, really feeling alive,
Mm-hmm.
really, yeah, like embodying, feeling emotions, feeling other people, you know, like I could hear really sad things. I could hold someone while they were crying, but I was having more of like a mental experience of like, that's really sad. This is a sad thing. And I would behave how you behave when something's sad,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't like feel touched.
So it was kind of like you, if I'm hearing right, it's kind of like you feel like you're going through the motions, but you're not really present to
Yeah.
how you actually feel, how you react. And it's like that
Yeah.
soft space is like, it's just like you're a shell almost
Yeah.
operating. Wow.
Yeah. And I was seeking the way in
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. You know, I would, you know, maybe it's kirtan, maybe it's dance, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And I would touch
Yeah.
at moments like little whispers, but I didn't know how to like recreate it or cultivate it more. There were just
Mm-hmm.
these surprise moments where I was like, oh, I felt something, you know, like when I would cry, I would then get so happy that I was crying. I wouldn't even like get the full cry. I was like, I'm feeling, you know? And then here I was with this guy and 20 minutes talking to him in this bar. I don't remember the topic, but whatever it was something I had shared with many, many people that I didn't usually feel as I shared it. But here I was with like leaky eyes and feeling sensations in my body and feeling emotions as I told him this story. And it was like, what is this? Why am I feeling myself right now? And my first conclusion was that he had to be my soulmate, because he is causing this in me and it's magic, you know?
Yeah.
And thankfully, we became friends, and he became like a pseudo coach to me. Um, and I learned that his way of being with me, um, wasn't magical chemistry. I mean, yeah, we liked each other, but he learned how to be present in that way. He learned how to be curious in the way he was curious. He learned how to listen and respond in the ways that he listened and responded. And it was all of that that basically my nervous system, attuned to. And I think it gave me like the green light of you're safe here.
Mm-hmm.
You're not
Yeah.
going to be judged. You're not going to get opinions and advice. You're not going to be
Yeah.
told it's wrong. You're not going to be told how to be better. You're just going to be deeply received.
Right. So,
And
so it's learnable, it's teachable, and
yes,
the human body somehow just knows to respond
yeah.
to this. Um, I would love
And
to get,
that's circling. Like,
yeah, okay, it's circling. So I would love to get more into the things, but I know that some people watching this, like we have two spectrums of people who are afraid to feel again, which may be more in your personal experience, and then there's the
mhm,
people who feel like their emotions are too much, where
yeah,
if they get too intense, or that, like we know a lot of it's like pent up, like stuff over time just gets pent up and then it explodes. But like for those people listening to your story and saying like, well, I don't know if things like circling and even all this other stuff beyond that, um, if that's going to make me feel more, I don't know if that's going to be useful, because usually I push people away when I feel so intensely more. So maybe can you speak into people who might be thinking, well, I don't need more emotions.
yeah, absolutely. So those are people I used to be jealous of. They're like, oh my God, how could you complain about feeling? Like, it's so much better than where I am, you know? And of course, like we all just got our little package of goodies that we get to work through. But yeah, a lot of people I would describe a lot of people who are part of the connection movement relate to what you just described.
Mhm.
And I think that actually for both sides of this coin, an important step is the acceptance of what is as it is.
Mhm.
And that whether it was me not feeling, wanting to feel, forcing it, trying to feel it, it's like, like trying to have an orgasm from someone like, poking your cheek. It's like,
Not a
no,
good
I
word.
should be having an orgasm right now. It's like you can feel the poking your cheek and it's not causing those sensations. So, you got to accept that. And right. And it's like, so that's like the less feeling version. And then the more feeling version is like, I should be feeling less. I should be feeling less. And in the non acceptance of what is, we cause a whole new set of experiences and little traps for ourselves, like these double binds
Mhm.
of like, damned if I do, damned if I don't. Well, this is who I am. I want to be myself, but being myself has people not want to be around me. So I
Mhm.
take myself away, but then they think I don't want to be there. And then this and then that.
Yeah.
And it's like the thing that I just keep coming back to, no matter how someone describes their trap or their double bind, is like, let's just go there. Let's just go to the numb or go to the too much and be in it together with no agenda except being there and
Yeah.
being met there.
Mhm.
And the meeting there, which is different than most therapy,
Mhm.
here is there's something wrong with it. Or at least I'm going to see you as though there's nothing wrong with it. If
Mhm.
you're going to see that there's something wrong with it, then I'm going to be with you in what it's like to think that there's something wrong with how you're being.
Right.
Right. So it's like we're just going to meet what is. And the interesting thing is that can cause shifts, but we're not doing it to cause shifts. So it's
Right.
just like, I don't know how much you talk about meditation
Yeah.
in your work, but it's like we don't sit down to meditation to like create a result. It's like the being in it that
Yeah.
is the
That's the
point.
life. I do talk a lot about being and presence and just
Mm-hmm.
it's like that's the door and we'll see what happens when you open that door. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not regardless, it sounds like I know too when you bring your light or your attention to something, it really brings a sense of healing. And maybe we don't have time to go into what each one of these types of practices are. Like I know you're doing a synthesis, but maybe we can just like go into that healing aspect now, like what it is that you what you're teaching through your integration of all these understandings when you're trying to heal the past,
Mm-hmm.
and so you
Mm-hmm.
can make a new future. So there's people and part of our group like who don't really who are afraid to enter into new relationships because they're worried about them falling into the same traps they did in the past. And like and maybe some of them are thinking right now like, well, yeah, right, like the type of person who comes to do something like the connection movement is going to be like 1 in 1,000. What are my chances of getting that kind of person? But so
Uh,
maybe you could talk about like what
yeah.
what it brings to a relationship even if you're the only one who's doing something like this. And
That's a great question. It's a really great question because and it also very much applies to the direction that my work has been going.
uh-huh.
Because in the beginning I was very focused on like circling and these authentic relating practices, and we were working with a very self-selecting group who thought this was just the right thing for them and they would come. And this is to me a necessary movement. It's why I named it the connection movement, towards how we all can be with each other, and that we don't have to go all the way down deep scuba diving into the deepest waters to get benefit from these principles. And just some simple tools can impact the whole world around us, even if the other people aren't in and using
it, doing it fully. Yeah.
And that's what led me then to more of like the camp and the online work, and now going into companies, because we're not using words like healing and trauma and whatever like in companies, but by doing this work in a different way, those things are happening underneath. So to answer your question, which I think was, what if I'm like alone in doing this, or what if I'm not going all the way deep into it, or the person or people I'm relating to aren't? I think there are a few things. One is committing to curiosity as a way of thinking and being and relating. That can, just starting with that one thing and really committing to it, it's like I could teach you nothing else and a lot would change in all your relationships.
So like, because curiosity.
Just curiosity. The curiosity movement. So the thing about curiosity is that it's sort of, to me, the I don't know if we even still use this word. I might be sounding like an old fart when I say this, but a skeleton key. Do you know that term too?
Yes.
Key. It's like the key that the janitor has that opens every door, and they don't need like a specific key for each separate door. And to me, curiosity is that.
Totally.
Because the moment we come from a place of not knowing, then there's room for discovery, there's room for connection, there's room for empathy, there's room for sharing and viewing multiple perspectives, there's room for just knowing things that we couldn't have possibly known. It's like, even if I just took this exact moment of looking at Kristen on my screen, nodding and smiling and thinking, oh, like she's spending like the best time with me, she's really grooving on what I'm saying, and she's blah blah blah. And it's like, it could also be that her son is in the next room right now and she hears him saying that thing he's not supposed to say or do, and she's like somewhere else. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible that like her stomach is in knots, or it's like the smile is like, I'm going to come and bring everything I can.
I'm not that ingenuous.
Right. But the thing is, it's not ingenuous. It's that there's complexity to all of us, and that we trust our interpretations of things we see and hear with such commitment and conviction that we end up missing each other.
And that's why you need curiosity.
Yes, exactly. Because it's like, I just described that you looked engaged and interested and whatever. And so I actually really enjoyed my interpretation of what I could see in you. But sometimes we see people looking away a lot when we're talking, or sometimes we hear someone sigh or cut us off in traffic or whatever it is. Now, of course, someone who cuts us off in traffic, we can't get into a conversation with them, but we can be curious of like, wonder what just happened to that guy. I wonder why that, instead of the declarative, like, that guy's fill in foul
Right.
word, you know?
So I'm hearing like there's these multiple perspectives, and perhaps like we should not be so committed to the perspective and learning actually what is
What's
I think
there?
that what's there, and I've heard this through other things too, but I'm wondering, it also sounds a little dangerous where it's like maybe I shouldn't trust myself. Like where does, like
Right.
there's the inner trust about your interpretation versus
Mhm.
um the actual like curiosity of like discovering the truth. Like so
Right,
yeah.
right. And I think that both need to be there. And that's where the curiosity then also turns to yourself of like, what has me thinking I know this? Like, what's happening in me? Is it that? And we start to learn our own systems of like, well, this is that feeling of just like deep intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Or this is that feeling of I got to be safe right now. And so I got to figure this out so that I know how to navigate in this moment or whatever it may be. Like the more curious we get about ourselves, we can start to notice our patterns. But
Mm-hmm.
what I want to say is, I think curiosity is this amazing tool, but also we can't express it and activate it in every moment. You're like, hey, I just saw you smile. Are you feeling happy? Just checking. Hello, I saw you nod now. And oh, your head's going to the left. Now this, now that. It's like we can't. So we must have the foundation of trust, and also the trusting ourselves, and also the trust enough to know that sometimes we'll be wrong and things can still be okay,
Mm-hmm.
particularly if we then bring curiosity to the cleanup of having interpreted it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, wow, I was so sure of this. You did A, B, and C, and I was just so sure of it. Like, what actually was happening for you there? Versus, well, how was I supposed to know? You did this, this, and this. What are you expecting me to think?
Yeah.
And it's like this defense of our
Yeah. Or
interpretation.
it's your fault. Like what you did was totally wrong. You could just accept it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like,
Apologize.
and there's really great language, and I use this at the beginning when I'm teaching people this kind of curiosity, where I give like a kind of structure and language structure to use, and then once you've embodied it, the language structure can fall away, because we don't want to become like a
Mm-hmm.
robotic communicator of like, I'll use this now and I'll use this. But it's good to practice in the beginning, where it's just, you start by just sharing what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say what you see, it is an inarguably true observation. So
Yeah.
I can't see that you're having a great time. I can't see that you're angry. I can see that your mouth is smiling, and that you're nodding, and that your, you know, eyes look bright, or whatever it may be. So you share, it's like, hey, I'm noticing as I'm talking to you that you're like nodding and feel, like moving your body a bit. And I can't help but conclude that you're like kind of loving this, And it's like, is that true? Am I getting you right now? Or like, am I onto something here? And it can be, and that's of course, again, like a pleasant one. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's also when I just told you why I was late, I noticed your eyes go down to the floor and you exhaled loudly. And I'm over here thinking you're pretty angry with me, even though I heard you say it's fine. And I just want to know if you would let me in on what's going on over there, because it's hard for me to know like what's really happening.
Yeah.
There's like the curiosity instead of like, ugh, there they go again, pretending things are fine when they're not.
Passive aggressive. Da da da. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's like, that's a
Yeah.
simple tool that, and we can be curious also, like for those too muchers,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, we can be curious also about our impact on someone else.
Mm-hmm.
like, I am telling you all these things, and I know I'm like crying in a restaurant right now, and I can't help but think that you probably want to run away from this table right now. And I just have to ask, like, what is it like to be with me right now? Would you be willing to tell me? And that goes back to that thing, like, let's just be with what is,
Mm-hmm.
not with all of our made up imaginings of, oh, well, they're bound to not like me. They're bound to this. They're bound to think it's too much. I'm going to overwhelm them. We actually just ask,
Yeah.
what's it like? Would you be willing to tell me how it is to see me crying at the table right now? You know?
Yeah. And then somehow taking it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Or not taking it in, just being like, it's really hard to believe that. I'm not taking that in,
Yeah.
and get to be
It's hard
curious
for me to
about that.
believe that it's okay. Is that like, so for example,
Yeah.
like,
Okay. So what is you just told me that, and I don't believe it. And like, we can keep being curious about that here together, or I can go home and be curious about it in my journal or with a friend or whatever. But, because then we get to see the patterns. It's
mm-hmm.
like, wow, I keep getting all this feedback that I'm not too much. And I still am really worried about being too much because that person left me, or that person hurt me, or whatever may have
Mm-hmm.
given us the clue that we're too much, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I find too, we're kind of moving into like new relationship energy, and um,
Yeah.
I know we have to think about time too.
Sure.
But like new relationship energy, where there's the fear of losing people, but by not saying the right things, not doing the right things, not
Oh, this is a
wearing the
big
right things.
one.
But I find that like if you have a personality that is too much, and you have the tools to say things like, maybe I should sit with this alone, or maybe we can talk about this more, like just like what you were saying, like for me, I find that a partner would be very attracted to that. Like, wow, this person is so full of emotions and mature enough to move through them. What an incredible, exceptional human being. And I mean, and ideally in the connection movement, right? This isn't exceptional at all. This is normal. But
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. And that I have a friend who is kind of newer to the connection movement, and she came to camp last year, and um, it just like blasted her world open to seeing possibilities for being more genuine in her life, and more. She said she was always direct, but then there were like certain things. It's
Hmm.
like, I wouldn't tell them that, or not yet. And she's a very active dater. Like, she's on the apps and she's out and she's on dates. She's always on dates. And I often hear her strategizing about when to reveal certain things, how to say them. And and then it's like, no, I don't think I should say that till maybe like 2 months in, because then he'll feel this and then he'll know me. So
Wow.
he'll be more accepting. And I'm like, I don't want to be in a 2-month relationship that's not including the complete expression of myself, to then find out after 8 weeks or 3 months or 5 years or whatever it is, once I reveal myself, that it's not being met in a way that feels good to me.
Right.
And so I've actually been celebrating in a funny way that my relationships have been getting shorter, in the sense that we're getting to it.
Yeah.
We're getting
The
to
real
it.
stuff.
The real stuff. We're getting to the, experience of like, well, how are you when I'm me? And how am I when you're you? And do we like what we cause in each other?
Hmm.
And do we like how we deal with what we cause in each other?
Hmm.
And then like get on with it if we like it, and get on with it if
Yes.
we don't.
That's what I call the golden checklist. The real checklist is like, do I like who I'm becoming around you? Are we both on a path of growth? Like, do you like who you're like, it's basically the same things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always think it's like, what are you getting out of not saying that? You're getting another date with someone who doesn't
Yeah. And then you're like,
know this thing
then
that
it can be,
matters to you.
yeah. And it's like a foundation of distrust too, then like, oh, what else are you going to tell me later on?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Exactly.
So maybe
Yeah. So that goes to one of my teachings that is just like, say the thing. Say the
say the thing.
thing. You know, and that could be, does anyone else feel like this conversation is extremely uncomfortable and like something isn't being said? Or I know you really meant that as a compliment, but I'm having a hard time swallowing what you just said. Or God, I really like you. I just like you. And I want you to know. And I know it's like maybe weird to just blat it out, but I like you, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I just was like, just say the thing and then be curious and stay present in whatever the impact is of
Mhm.
having said the thing.
So maybe we can summarize a little bit like some of these tools that you're talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
one is curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Curiosity about what's over there, and also
mhm.
curiosity about what's in here and why, and what was that?
Got it. Okay. And then
And then the other one we've talked about is the say the thing.
yeah, say the thing.
Yeah. And then stay. It's not a hit and run.
Yeah.
You know, say the thing and then stay and be curious and
Hmm.
stay present to what is here now that I said the thing.
Yeah. And do you have one more tool you can just say briefly that you
Yeah.
would recommend for love relationships, particularly?
Mm-hmm. I think I just sort of alluded to it, where I said like, and then stay.
Yeah.
That this is a phrase that one of my mentors uses, and it's like, what are we committed to? You know, there's like a committed to being right, or committed to feeling safe, or committed
Hmm.
to feeling whatever. And what we emphasize, and it's no mistake that it's called the connection movement,
Yeah.
is a commitment to connection.
Yeah.
And connection doesn't have to be loving all and joyful and delicious all the time. It's connection is being together in what's true
Hmm.
and staying in contact about and in and around what's true.
Yeah.
So it's like choosing to commit to being in connection.
Yeah. Because that's what you value.
Yeah.
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 Awesome. So I'm sure that people will learn these types of tools and more at Connection Camp. But maybe you
Mm-hmm.
can tell us more about this because I saw the video online. And what's the website for that again? It's Connection Camp.
.com. Yep.
What
Connection.
a great name. Yeah. And I love the video on there. Just everyone just seems so joyful and happy, and like you're in this beautiful setting. I don't know if it's going to be in the same setting this year or not, but the Appalachian Trail is, I mean,
Yeah.
historical for that.
Absolutely.
And the trail itself was built actually to facilitate connection and conversation among hikers. But so that's really interesting that you're in that space.
Ah, I love that fact. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So I have a thing to name right
Yeah.
now. My battery's low. I have my plug. And if I bend down there, you guys are going to see my messy bed.
Okay, well, I'm going to go and pause then. How about that? How's
Well,
that make
no,
sense?
now that I named it, I
You want
don't
people to
feel
see your messy
shame
bed?
around showing you the messy bed.
Okay. I
But
wanted to take care of you.
yeah. Oh, see that? So now you're naming your thing. I want to
Yeah.
take care of you. And I'm like, I just need to clear this because if I confess it, then the shame goes away. So
Okay.
I'm going to just be right there.
Okay. Okay. It's not that messy.
How'd it look?
Just a pillow and a
Oh,
door
it was just a pillow?
decoration.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I was trying to give you a nice little runway here to tell us about Connection Camp.
Connection Camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Connection Camp came about 4 years ago, where I was recognizing that, yeah, I love the particular practices that I facilitate and that I like to participate in. But I've never been one of those, like, this is the thing, everyone needs this thing, it's like connection is the thing that I do believe that all humans need. I mean, it's part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is belonging, like right there after our basic survival needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, I have all these friends doing acro yoga and energy healing and touch workshops and learning about um, how to fight fair and play and improv and contact improv and dance. And it's like, I'm going to create a retreat because I'd always been doing retreats.
Yeah.
I'll create a retreat where I'll just bring all these different facilitators together, and we can all meet each other's communities and try on all these different flavors of connection, and it'll just be so much fun. And that was like where it came from. And I was like, it's no big deal either. Like, this will be easy.
Yeah.
And then when I made my list of all these modalities and people and practices that I wanted to have in one place, I realized this is not just a retreat, because I have a list of 20 facilitators.
Uh-huh.
So where are the participants going to be, And then I just thought, I have to rent out a sleepaway camp. That's how we'll do it. It was just like that. I didn't even know that there was a trend beginning for
Oh.
adult sleepaway camps.
Uh-huh.
This was like a solution or an expression of how to bring all these great people together.
Mm-hmm.
So that first year, I produced this sleepaway camp with a friend, and it's the formula like worked. It just worked. But the thing that was amazing is the formula to me was, how do I just get all these things to happen in one weekend?
Uh-huh.
And I kept being like, this would be cool. This would be fun. We could do this. And my intention was solely create opportunities for people to experience and experiment with connection.
Yeah.
Well, what I ended up creating was, it met so many different needs for people. It was a place to show up and be yourself. It was a place to be honored and met as you are. It was a place to stretch your edges and limits. Like, I would never do this, but I'm going to do it here. And to get samplings of maybe experiences or practices or teachers that we never even had heard of, or maybe wouldn't have known how to like, okay, I've heard of Reiki, but like, how would I even pick a Reiki practitioner? But like, there's just one right here and you just had lunch with them. So yeah, that's how you pick them, So the structure is 4 days, 3 nights sleeping over. There are about 40 workshops over the course of the 4 days. And typically they're about like 4 at a time, at any time slot. And I create a range of experiences, and they are diverse in terms of how vulnerable they might invite you to be,
Mm-hmm.
how physical they might be, how what kind of tools we're using. Like, is it art? Is it dance? Is it silence? Is it touch?
Mm-hmm.
So we can all find kind of like our belongings, our places of belonging.
It sounds
Or
like
rule out.
it sounds like you're helping people find the practices that they can synthesize to help them connect. Just like you had all these things we were talking about that really resonate for you, that make you be able to facilitate the connection movement. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
it's like all these things that I've tried and more that I hadn't even tried, but I,
Yeah.
really vetted carefully
Yeah.
and found the right people to bring these things together. And then also these really cool collaborations come when I bring all these different facilitators together. So they're like,
Mhm.
oh, you're doing that and I'm doing this. Let's do it together. Let's see
Yeah.
what that's like. And so it's really a beautiful place of exploration and letting our guard down. And there's something that happens when we leave home,
Mhm.
I think, where we just loosen the reins on ourselves and don't feel like we need to fit in to the expectations of the people who are used to us, or you know just even being surrounded by your typical surroundings can force us into like habits or more safe decisions. And when I say safe, I just mean like in the box that we've created for
Mhm.
ourselves. I'm not talking about anyone risking doing things that could hurt or harm them.
Yeah.
um so there's all that in the group workshops, and then we also have one-on-one practitioners who offer 20-minute like taster kind of like laser sessions where you get
Mhm.
to try something out or process something like, hey, I just went to this workshop about conflict, and ever since then I've been really thinking about my ex, and it says you're a relationship coach, so
Yeah.
can we have a conversation? And then there's these other categories of like all camp experiences, and these are things like talent shows and dance parties and bonfires and pool parties and lake activities,
Mhm.
and everything is choose your own adventure.
Mhm.
So maybe you jump in, maybe you don't. And those are places where we get to explore things like play and how do I show up in a bigger group, how do I show up in a smaller group, how do I show up one-on-one.
Mhm.
um, we have color Olympics, which is inspired by the old school sleepaway camp color wars.
Yeah.
So now we're getting into the experience of like collaboration and competition,
Yeah.
but with really low stakes. But you get
Yeah.
to see like, oh my god, I like really cared about that hula hoop thing.
Yeah.
What did that feel like, and
That
why?
would be me. I'd be really into something that didn't really matter that much because I love winning.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's funny because
Yeah.
I generally am not competitive when the stakes are high, but when
Yeah.
they're low, like charades or balderdash or Pictionary, I love, you mouth the words, like it's just am I crazy? And it's fun to discover that about myself and be like, what's happening here? And so you just said you love to win, and something I discovered was like, oh, I love to be right. I like
Yeah.
to be fair and right. And then if I lose, it's fine. And if I win, it's fine. But like not if it's not right and fair.
Yeah.
So
I,
the
I,
fair is my
to
thing.
correct myself, I think I like celebrating the win more than I like the winning part itself.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these
But
are
so
all those things.
it sounds like you really are getting in touch with your nature. So when you go out after camp, and you're doing it in a way that's like playful and fun. It's as light or as intense as you want, and you can ebb and flow
Exactly.
between it as like, okay, I thought I was going to be like intense, hardcore, get the shit out of me, but really I need to back up and just have fun. And other people
Yeah.
might be like, wow, I'm capable of diving more deep into this than I even knew. So like
hmm
the
And there are no
other half,
expectations,
yeah.
because you're not at like a deep dive retreat or a play retreat. You're at like just I've described it on the first day of camp as like showing up in Vegas at a buffet. And it's like, there's no way you're going to try all those things. And you can approach that buffet in a gluttonous way. You can approach that buffet in a like, I'm being mindful of my food and I want to have like succulent little tastes of everything. Or, you get to make up the experience of the buffet. And some people walk away having had like the best salad they ever had, and others are like, must eat all, so
Yeah.
you get to create your experience at camp. It's all available to you, and there are coaches and facilitators there to also like continue to be with you in how it is to be doing camp the way that you're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and then a community that you get to continue to be part of. Because I
Right.
have found in my life that when I go to things, they call it like a workshop high. Some people call that. It's like you go and you get to experience these feelings or this version of yourself or this inspiration or this motivation or this like, when I go home, I'm going to do this every day. And then you're back around the people that you created your other patterns with. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's part of the thing about this being nestled into like a greater movement. So we had people after camp moving in together, like not romantic, but like we should live
Roommates.
together, or starting mastermind groups together and becoming coaches for each other and accountability partners for each other. Because it's like, me better than actually my husband, because I let all of me out here and not just the parts that I've gotten into a groove of sharing because it keeps us out of tension.
Yeah.
And so it becomes like this lifting up, or like, upgrading
Yeah.
of the kinds of experiences we can have.
Mm-hmm.
And we also then have support in bringing it back into like the husbands and the friends and the roommates and the parents, where we have like our feedback loop with people who know where we're coming from and why we
Mm-hmm.
have this new desire or need.
Yeah. Excellent. So it
Yeah.
sounds extremely valuable. How do people sign up?
So on connectioncamp.com,
Okay.
you can see all the different options for the different housing accommodations. We've got group cabins. You could bring your own tent. There are even a couple upgrades if you just want to give me a queen bed, like a door to close. I don't want to stay with other people at night. And then also, we've put together a coupon code for anyone who comes through Kristen today, or through what was it called? Spiritual Women or Woman?
Spiritual woman. Yes. Yes.
Spiritual Woman can use the code Kristen today and get $40 savings off of our.
Yay.
Woo woo.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's 4 days and 3 nights, so it's Thursday through Sunday. For some people, they just can't make it for the whole thing, and so there is also a way to write to us to get a discount that accounts for if you can't be there the whole time. We'll adjust the length of your stay without you having to pay the whole price. So
Okay. That's awesome.
yeah.
Excellent. So
I want to
how
say
do
one
people
little
know if
thing.
this is the how does someone know if this is the thing that they need right now? Like how would they know
Mm,
it's for me right now?
that's a good question. Um, I guess some of the questions you might ask yourself to see, is this for me right now, is like on one end of the questions, it might be, am I needing to refresh and reconnect to parts of myself that I'm not finding it easy to feel or access right now? Like I used to be so I used to be so disciplined about exercising, or I used to make jokes all the time, or it used to be easy for me to talk to strangers, or it used to be, and like, where did that go? Like that might be what's bringing you to camp, where you just get to like come and invest in yourself and have others invest in
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
and curious about you and welcome you. And it could also be like, I got some stuff that I want to explore. I want to get to the bottom of, um, why am I repeating this
Hmm.
relationship pattern, or whatever it may be. And what I can say about both of those is, this is a beginning place to start like opening up and unfolding and peeling it back. Some people leave and they're like, that was transformational. I got what I came looking for. And others like, I got the exact right start. And now I see the path ahead and the work ahead.
Hmm.
So I would never say, people have left and been like, my whole life is different now. I used to be dependent on alcohol. I was lonely. I was selfish. I was this and that. And literally since Connection Camp, like, I just don't drink when I socialize. I feel loved. I have community. And that's like truly a life transformation. And
Yeah.
there are others who are just saying like, this is so cool because now I found meditation
Hmm.
and things are changing, or I found this coach and things are moving.
Hmm.
So I never want to promise like, your life will never be the same.
No,
But
but
I,
there's certain questions that people tend to ask themselves
mm-hmm,
when they know like maybe this is the right thing for them. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, we really get such a big variety of people and what they're there for. And we all can walk away maybe with what we came for, and maybe with like, I didn't know that this is what I was going to get. I thought I was here to work on romance, but actually it's like, I just really got clear about my relationship with my mom,
Hmm.
and that's something I want to mention. We are playing around this year with like, how could we've had a few mother-daughter pairs come
Uh-huh.
to camp, like 2 generations at camp. And I really love the idea of more of the multi-generation uh, partnerships showing up,
Hmm.
grandmother and mother, mother and daughter,
Yeah.
um, father and son, whatever it may be. So if that's something you're thinking about, it's not public on the site yet, but we're putting together like a special kind of
Great.
deal for that. And this year we have some special scholarships for breast cancer survivors, veterans, and people in recovery. So
Great.
those are
That's
all, it's
awesome.
like you can just contact us through the website.
Again, June
And
13th through 16th
that's right, June
in
13 through
near the
16.
Appalachian Trail, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And then if hopefully people can come to that, right? And if they can't,
Mhm.
there's lots of things always happening at the connection movement, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if you live somewhere and you're part of a community, a church community, school faculty, a business, and you could imagine something like this camp or just a workshop for your community, then that's also something we could explore. I've traveled to South Africa, I've traveled to Europe, I've traveled to South Florida, and brought this work into environments where it wasn't already happening, and also trained people so they could either
Do it.
continue it or start their own thing. So
Awesome.
um, if New York or New Jersey just isn't in the cards for you, that's not that doesn't need to stop you from having access to this.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all your light and your wisdom, your enthusiasm, and your heart, Amy. This has been a
Uh,
lot of fun.
this was so much fun. I think I want to just have you do all my videos with me. Be like, I want to talk about this. Will you ask me some questions? I just really loved
Perfect.
being with you and hearing about your community that you've been growing. And I'm always here for any ways that you think I can contribute.
Awesome.